Okay, welcome to today's video. This is a bit of a special. You'll notice that there's two less people here. It's just myself and Scott on today's one. And today we're going to do a championship scoreboard. So it's the Scottish Championship. And we're just going to run through each of the teams and sort of give our thoughts on who we think the star players have been, how we think their season's gone so far. And we're going to basically assign each of them a scorecard. We're kind of, the reason it's the two of us doing this sort of special episode is because more so than Andrew and Ryan, we've got a real interest in the Scottish lower leagues and the Championship. And I suppose, Scott, we're going to try and be as least or as unbiased as possible, despite the fact we've both got our Rovers strips for the 2020-21 season.
So I mean, it wasn't planned, but we've ended up wearing the same kit, which is the Rovers home strip for this season. But I mean, as a league in general, I try to be unbiased, just and look at the plus points of each team, and so hopefully we can have it come across like that.
I think it's a good time to review the league as well, because it's still really tight when you look at the table, but we're kind of coming into the business end of what is a shortened season. Obviously, there's only 27 games. You're really going to get the fight for the playoffs, and you're starting to get an idea of who's going to be in the relegation scrap. So, and I suppose, speaking of the relegation scrap, we might as well fire into the first team, and just so folk know, we're going to go through it in alphabetical order. And assuming I've got it in alphabetical order, Scott, Alloa are first?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. I read through it like 10 times trying to check it. So I'll go first. I've given Alloa an E, because we're going to rate them I've rated them from A to F. I don't know about you, but I've given them an E because, and so the reason is they're bottom of the league, but they kind of have the lowest budget, so it's always going to be a struggle. And my logic for their thing is that the results have picked up lately and they're still very much in it. But they have the worst defence in the league. They've conceded 42 goals, which is 10 more than anyone else. And so I didn't want to give them an F just because they were the bottom team. I kind of gave them an E to recognise that they're not gone, but it's a bit as best as they can do, sort of thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more you can say. As you say, they're one of the two part-time teams in the league, and I mean you could say they're punching above their weight, just season in, season out, able to stay in the league. So, I mean, there's still maybe 9 games to go for them, something like that. So 8 or 9. They're only, I think, 2 results away from catching Morton, so it could be done. But I gave them an E/F. I mean, I don't think you can give anybody higher than an E that's looking like they're going to get relegated. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I would go an E/F. I mean, I don't know. I take it you've done the same. We can go over sort of like key players or worst sort of players, but I've got 2 down for Alloa, and I think it's probably the same 2 that every single person when you watch Alloa would say.
Yeah.
I've got Alan Chowton and Kevin Colley, who have both got 4 goals this season. And Kevin Colley's also got a few assists. But these 2 basically get the points that wherever Alloa gather, it'll be them that's got them the points.
Chowton's a massive player when he can stay on the pitch.
I mean, Chowton is like one of the names, like household names in the lower leagues that everybody sees week in, week out, scoring in the lower leagues of Scotland. The other one you could say was Rory McAllister, who's in League One. But that's the 2 I went for anyway. Yeah,
no, that's fair. I had Colley and Troughton down as well. The other player I had noted was Innes Cameron.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Obviously, he's just come on loan from Kilmarnock in the second half of the season in January. So I didn't pick him as a star player. I had Colley down as a star player, but I had him as a player of note because I think his impact is the reason that Alloa are still in it. He scored, I think, 5 goals in 7 games for them since joining. And he seems to be, when we played Alloa and beat them. Was it 5-2? We beat them. They looked at times like they were lacking a focal point up top, and I thought when they signed him, I thought he's the kind of player they need, even though he hadn't had a great first half of the season. I think it was Ayr. He only scored the one goal. But yeah, no, I've noticed he's been picking up goals, and Alloa, they're 5 points behind Morton, and they've played a game more. But if you've got a guy like Cameron with the kind of goal ratio he does, then they're in with a shout. So yeah, I think we're both kind of in the same mindset of an EF.
Yeah,
they are the weakest team in the league, but I don't think they play terrible football. I think they're just one of the part-time teams.
I was going to say that actually, just to add it on near the end, was that I've not heard and I've not seen from highlights when I do watch any of the championship highlights that Alloa are a pretty good footballing side, and we played them a couple of weeks ago, and we won in the end, but Alloa in the first half played some decent stuff and passed it around well. And I mean, they've got two centre halves who aren't known for playing out for the back, but seem to have adapted under Peter Grant. They seem to have adapted under Peter Grant, so managing to do that has been pretty good for them. So yeah, as you say, you can't really go above an E though.
That's there. So speaking of part-time teams, that brings us to the next one, which is Arbroath. Right. So I'll let you go first with the scorecard, seeing as I gave Alloa a score first. So what are you thinking for Arbroath this season?
So it was a difficult one, and there's a few teams that have been a bit like this for this episode as well. I've given them a B/C.
Yeah.
Had we done this maybe 6 weeks ago, it would probably been a solid C, if not a D. But in the last 6 weeks, Arbroath have been fantastic. They've been one of the form teams until last weekend when they lost to Queen of the South. They were one of the form teams in the league, and had been, I think it was 5 games in a row they had picked up at least a point, but most of them were wins anyway.
Yeah, they've won 3 of the last 5, yeah.
Yeah, until Queens went up to Arbroath and got a good result on Saturday. But yeah, I went with B/C.
Yeah, I gave them a B-. I gave them an A+ for commentary, because listening to the Femmer for 90 minutes was worth the £12 video pass alone, especially the fact that it was the worst 90 minutes the Rovers have had all season.
It wasn't great.
So yeah, A+ for commentary. And I gave them a B- because kind of a similar one to Alloa, although they're actually doing a lot better, is that Arbroath are a part-time team, and they are punching above their weight. And I think any Arbroath fan would tell you that. You know, I mean, they were 5th last season, I think, when the championship was called to a halt, and looking like they were going for the playoffs. And they're very, like you say, in recent form, they're kind of very much in that fight. I like Arbroath because they've got hard-working players like Jason Thompson, Michael McKenna. Like they don't mess around. They don't try to be anything they're not. They have a system under Dick Campbell, which is, if you try and pass it around us, we'll kick you into the North Sea. They get solid options up, out wide with Hilson and Lennon and stuff. And my star player, a player of note, it might not be one that many people would pick, but I picked Tam O'Brien in defence, and the reason I picked him is not because, like, the farmer seems to think he is the best centre-back in the league. I don't think that. But I think he is playing well. I think he's solid at the back, and I think he just typifies Arbroath this season, which is just organisation, no nonsense, clear the lines, get up the pitch, don't give the opposition the space to breathe. And that's what they did, like, when they were playing us, is they were just choking the Rovers out all over the pitch, right and up in our faces. So I kind of think that he kind of embodies Dick Campbell's footballing style, if you can call it a style. What do you think?
Funny enough, I'd put down 2 again, players that I thought have had pretty decent seasons, and one of them was Tam O'Brien. He's, as you say, he is a name that gets bandied around each summer of, is he going to go full-time with somebody? And whether it's a full-time championship team or Could there be somebody like, I don't know, a Ross County or somebody in the Prem that could maybe go for him? But yeah, it's. I think he's got a couple of goals this season for, I'd imagine, for corners. But
you're thinking so,
yeah. The other player of note I've got down is James Cragin.
Oh yeah.
He's had
a bit of a journeyman, hasn't he?
quietly good season. Yeah, he's bounced around a few teams in Scotland, but he's I think he's got a couple of goals and an assist this season, and he's been pretty good and solid in the middle of the park. He's needed to step up as well because Vertanen had been recalled by Aberdeen.
Yeah, that was a big loss.
He was a big player for them last season in midfield, and they needed somebody. Cragin's maybe a little bit more attack-minded than Vertanen is, but he seems to have filled in that role nicely, and he gets them playing some decent stuff, considering Arbroath, as you say, they're more a kind of get up the park and will battle you in your own end to get the ball and then try and nick a goal, basically. So yeah, that's the two that I not put down noteworthy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like they've also got, I noted, is it Jack Hamilton, the boy they've got on loan from Livy up top? He's a pretty good striker as well. They've got a decent squad. The thing you're saying about Tam O'Brien, in terms of going between the Willie transition to full time, he's kind of like, he reminds me of Dougie Hill when Dougie Hill was at the Rovers, in that he's a solid lower championship player, and he kind of knows his level, and he's maybe thinking, I'd assume he's like, I've got a good gig here at Arbroath, probably making a reasonable amount of money with that in the full-time job or part-time job, and maybe it's not worth going full-time. But
it's fair enough.
I kind of think Arbroath, I don't know, they're 6 points off the playoffs. I think they're 6 at the moment. I think they'll finish there or thereabouts. I don't think they'll get. They might do. I don't think they'll get relegated. I think they're solid enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't see them now that they've had that good run. I think that good run has kind of kept them clear. Although
there's only 2 points.
It's only 2 points to the relegation playoff at 9th. So to say they're safe, it's still a bit too early. But especially because all the teams below them have got games in hand. So
I think
all them teams aren't going to win. So at the same time, it's a bit difficult.
They showed, like, when they beat us 1-0 recently, that they can grind out results against anyone. So I don't.
Yeah.
I think they're going to stay up. So I think, again, it might become a common theme, but like I had a B-, you had a B or a C, so we're kind of on the same lines with Arbroath. Okay, given that you live with someone from the West Coast, I'm going to let you put your head on the line here and give Ayr a scorecard first. And I'm sure Matt will be listening with great intent.
So that's his little shout out that he'd asked for. Yeah, a guy I live with and work with over here in Amsterdam, Matt, he's a massive Ayr United fan. So I mean, I did my own research, but he also helped me out with some pointers of players that have been good and bad for them. I've given them a D. So it's not a complete failure, but it's definitely not been an enjoyable or a good season in Ayr standards either. They've only had 2 wins since the 5th of December, which kind of tells you everything. I mean, they've had a lot
relegation form, isn't it?
Yeah, they've had a lot of draws and losses, and then just 2 weeks ago they just sacked Mark Kerr. So, and funny enough, they went and won. They went and won last weekend at Morton. So, whether it'll turn out to be the correct decision, we'll find out. But it certainly started off well enough for them. I think I've heard rumours of that David Hopkin is the favourite to get it, who left Morton sort of end of last year, end of 2020. So he's linked with that job anyway.
Whenever I hear David Hopkins, I just think of Syndrome from the Invincibles. Honestly, if you haven't seen it, Google it. Spitting image. Andy, get that on screen. David Hopkinson syndrome. I'm telling you. I think he'd be a great appointment. We were talking about this last week. I think because I think on the BBC Scottish Football podcast, James McFadden had sort of said that he was interested in the job if he was asked, and that, and we were saying that it's not a situation for a rookie manager to come in and try and turn it around. Like, you need somebody that has experience of managing at this level and that can kind of galvanise the squad. Like,
no, I agree. I said this to Matt, and Matt said the same thing. It's just not what they need right now. Mm-hmm. Maybe whether it's the right thing to do, but I would even just give somebody, whoever they want as their manager, I'd give them just a contract to the end of the season. Yeah. See if they stay up, see how they're playing, and if it's all a fit, then you give them a year or a 2-year deal, whatever you want. But
yeah,
I don't think you just go. I hate when all these clubs splash out and go, right, here's a 3-year deal. I mean, how many managers have you seen that even last 3 years?
I know.
It's no many. Even in Scotland, it's no many. So I didn't like it when managers just get given contracts for clubs and they're gone within 8 months or a year, whatever. But so a couple of players that I've noted down that have had pretty decent seasons, even though Ayr have been very inconsistent, is I've got the two names I've got down is Cammy Smith, who's their joint top scorer with 5 goals. He's also got an assist, but he seems to be sort of the more consistent ones that are performing at least a 7 out of 10 week in, week out. One thing Matt did tell me was that even Mark Kerr, knowing that he's one of the sort of guys that creates chances and scores goals, he was still a few times dropped to the bench, which a lot of the Ayr fans didn't know why. So whether it's little niggles or I don't know, but it's And the other player who they actually just brought in January from Ipswich, Corey Ndaba, who is a left back stroke centre back,
right?
Who's apparently put in a few very good and solid performances. I don't think he scored or anything, but he looks very solid and good in the air. So maybe he can bring them a bit more consistency in this final third.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think I agree with. I think Cammy Smith was one of the players I'd noted down. I think he's a good player at this level. Another guy I had down was. I'd be interested to know Matt's opinion, because I'll be honest, tonight's game of the Rovers versus Ayr will be the first time I've seen Ayr this season, so I'm kind of basing it on what I've read and what I've seen. Is Luke McCowan's got, I think, 3 goals and 5 assists, and I know that a couple of seasons ago he was being touted as one of the next big things to come out of the Championship. I think it was Cardiff were sniffing about. You know, he plays that number 10 role well, kind of anywhere across the midfield and in mind the strikers. But so if Matt watches this, stick a comment down below, mate. Let me know whether Luke McCowan's actually having as good a season as the stats suggest, because like I say, I haven't seen Ayr, so I'm actually interested to see them tonight and see whether they've got a bit more about them. I gave Ayr an E because I actually did the ratings before they won the weekend there, and it was looking a bit more bleak. And it was only because we were that team a few years ago where a rot sets in, having had a couple of good seasons, and you just start sliding down and you sack a manager. So I think there's definitely the potential for Ayr to come back up. And if they appoint the right manager, the type of manager we've said, like David Hopkins, I think they will stay up. But at the moment, I've given them an E because they're a team that have been in playoff contention in recent seasons, you know, going back to Ian McCall and that. And by that standard, this has been a poor year, and Ayr can't afford really to get relegated.
No.
Because like us, they're the kind of team that it can take them a couple of years to get back out that league. So they really need to, in a league that has, you know, I know we said Arbroath have played well this year, but in a league that has 2 part-time teams, Ayr shouldn't be getting relegated. So that's why I've given them an E, and hopefully a turn around, because they're a team that we've had some good battles with, but I hope we beat them tonight.
Yeah.
Dundee are next.
Yes.
Okay.
They are just.
You wouldn't think I had 2 degrees, like. Yeah, Dundee. Okay, I'll fire straight into it. I gave Dundee the same score. I gave Dundee an E, because I think by their standards and expectations, they're not having a great season. I was going to give them a D just because it was Dundee, but that would be an Andy type joke, so I avoided that. They've got a big budget and a player wage bill that hasn't delivered so far. And when you look back at their form, McPake, you just can't get a run of games together. They've got a run of wins together. They've got 1 win in the last 5. And I know they were unlucky recently in a 2-1 loss to Hearts, but when we played them at Starks Park and they went 1-0 up and then just ran out of legs and gave away the game, they didn't look like a team capable of getting promotion, and that is ultimately their aim. And I think, reading the Pie and Bovril, looking at the forums, I think there's a frustration with Dundee that they haven't been challenging up the top end of the Championship when it's such an open league. They've been stuck in the middle of the table of late. I suppose the other point before I pass it on to you is that they brought in Jason Cummings and he's got 4 goals in his last 4 games, and if they are going to get up their backside and into the playoffs, then he's the man that's going to do it. So I don't know what you think of Dundee so far.
I wasn't quite as harsh as you with their overall grade. I think E, considering they're 5th currently, but they're only a couple of points off the playoffs. I think E was maybe a little bit harsh, but that's just my opinion. I went with a C/D.
Yeah.
Like, as you say, they've got the 2nd biggest budget in the league, and the players that they were bringing in and have brought in January just shout out why they're not 2nd, or at least challenging Hearts a bit more than sort of us and Dunfermline are. They should be easily challenging Hearts compared to the fact that it's the 2 teams for Fife that are the closest to them.
That's why I gave them an E, I think, because I know like when you look at the league, they're sitting very rosy, and I think they will get in the playoffs, possibly at the expense of Queen of the South. We'll come to that later. Hopefully not at the expense of ourselves. But I think by when you look at the players they've got, the wage bill, and by their own expectation and standards, I think it's been a poor season for them so far. They should, so that's kind of why I went with the E. But yeah, like it is harsh in the context of the whole league. But maybe I just don't think I think for Dundee, I think it's kind of fair. But I mean, who would you pick as their star player?
I mean, only because he started the season so well and got himself quite a few goals and assists, you would have to put Charlie Adam down there. Yeah. And I mean, he came in as one of these marquee signings that was meant to run the league and run that team. And he did, I would say, for maybe the first 2 months of the season.
Yeah.
But since then, I think he's completely gone off the boil, but I've still put him down as sort of one of their better players. Another one is just since he came in January, or right at the end, I think he maybe came in deadline day, I'm not sure, but Jason Cummings was brought in and has got now 4 games and 4 goals in 4 games. So he seems to have found form again. And I mean, Cummings has shown with Hibs in this league, he's deadly, especially from in and around the box. So yeah, I've put in them guys.
Yeah, talent-wise, Cummings is he should be playing in the SPL.
Yeah.
So he is the kind of caliber of striker that, like I said, I think he'll fire them to the playoffs. I had Charlie Adam as well, because I think he is their best player on his day. But like you say, when he's poor, Dundee are poor. And like that game I was mentioning where they went 1-0 up early on at Starks Park and we beat them 3-1, I think it was. He just didn't turn up in the second half, and neither did Dundee. No. And if he's not pulling the strings, a lot of the other players are kind of like looking around thinking, well, what's going on here? I'd put Osman Sow down as well for a player I know. He's got 7 goals, which is a reasonable return given that there's not that many players with a lot of goals in the Championship this season. But again, like Charlie Adam, like there's times you'll watch Dundee and he's invisible. I think Stowe's always had a bit of an attitude problem, I think. And I was saying, like, when I looked on the face of things, I thought Liam Fontaine, experienced defender, 3 goals from centre back. I thought, he must have had a good season. But then I looked at Dundee's stats, and they've got I think the defence has been the bane of them this season, because they've conceded 32 goals in the league, which is the 3rd highest, outside of Queen of the South, who are mental, and Alloa. So, like, I think we're talking about big wage, like big name players for the Championship not stepping up. Like, Liam Fontaine in a defence should not be conceding 32 goals at this point in the season,
Yeah, no.
It's over 2 goals a game that Dundee are averaging. That's very poor by their standards.
Dunfermline, yeah, so I've given them a B. It quite possibly could have been an A up maybe at the start of January, but since January, apart from they beat us 4-1 right at the start of February, apart from that game, their form's been awful in 2021. So
yeah,
I think in 2021 their form would probably be an F, but as it's an overall season, they're still sitting 3rd, so they're not having a bad season. That early form is kept them there, so yeah, I give them a B.
Yeah, I reluctantly did as well. I'd like to forget that 4-1 game happened, because we were absolutely brutal in that game, as we often are against the Pars. I gave them a B because they're 3rd. There's a good chance they'll finish above us, depending on how things pan out. I'm inclined to say it's going to be us and the Pars in that 2nd, 3rd place playoff. I think that if they would say they were 3rd, I think they would beat whoever was 4th. Asked my friend who's a Pars fan, he thought Pars fans were expecting them to push Hearts a little bit more this season, and that they aren't doing that. And there's times where, even in the first half of the season, they were kind of experts in the late goal, and it kind of bailed them out of what were sometimes otherwise lackluster performances. They don't score as many goals as they would like. 26 goals is less than any other team in the top half of the table.
Yeah.
So a B is probably a fair reflection of where they are on the table. I'd be interested to know if there's any Pars fans listening to this, whether they honestly think a B is good enough or reflects based on their expectations of this season, because I know they won't be happy sitting behind us, even if it's only on goal difference or whatever. And they did seem, they thought they were going to be challenging Hearts, basically, from the hyperbole that was coming out of East End Park before the season started anyway. But what about star player? Who did you have down for that?
The main one I would say is, because it was almost a cheat code at the start of the season, was Ewan Murray scoring through a corner. So I've got Ewan Murray, especially when it was Dom Thomas taking a set piece for him. I've got Ewan Murray down as their star player, and I mean, fair play to him, he's their captain, so he's meant to be a leader, and I would say he has been for the majority of the season. And I mean, again, I looked on forums and stuff. I don't think I've seen any Pars fans disagreeing with that. I think most of them have thought he's been probably Mr. Consistent from their lineup. Another guy I did highlight only because of the goals he scores is Declan Mcmanus. I have noticed since Dunfermline's form has dipped, so has his, and he's been pretty poor since Christmas. He was scoring pretty regularly up until Christmas, and then since then I think he might only have 2 goals, something like that.
I think so.
He's definitely gone a bit cold lately. So that's the only 2 that I had down.
I kind of I had Murray as well, because Dunfermline have the best defence in the league. They've only conceded 19 goals. And he's their main centre back, and obviously I guess something daft like 7 goals by November. and he hasn't scored since. But I mean, they're still defensively, they're still very solid. They can shut, when they want to, they can shut teams out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Players of note, I did have McManus down again. It's interesting that you're kind of pointing out when a team isn't in form, McManus isn't in form, and that was the season under Gary Locke and Yogi Hughes that we had where we went down was just McManus in a nutshell. He was the Rovers. We were in a slump. We couldn't buy a goal or a result, and McManus was the exact same. Nothing was falling his way.
Yeah,
I think he's a very emotional player. When the team's on a high and the fans are on a high, and in a big game, he does deliver because he's a talented player.
Yeah.
But I think I wouldn't have him as a star player. Kevin O'Hara's another good attacking option they've had. I think Fraser Murray's done pretty well. He's kind of grown into the side. Had a good game against us anyway, unfortunately. I know Hibs fans have been, because I was chatting to my mate McClellan, shout out McClellan, who's a big Hibs fan, and he's a fan of Fraser Murray, so it'll be interesting to see how he does the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I think like we say, I think a B is fine for the Pars. They'll probably stuff us in the next derby now we've said that. I don't think there's much. We'll get to the Rovers. I don't think there's much between the two teams. I think both teams deserve to be second and third.